Mangwanani Malelepo Vukenjani Klas Vanabe Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry and Glenora Shipura. Good morning, Glenora. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I feel good.
It's one day closer to Friday.
One day closer to Friday. But Thursday is my favorite day of the week.
Is
oddly.
it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
it is. Yeah.
Oddly.
Yeah.
Well, today is World Occupational Therapist Day. Occupational therapists focus on promoting health and well-being by enabling people to participate in the everyday occupations of life. Occupational therapy services can be used to meet the specific and individual needs of students with disability that affect what they need to do at school. We'll be back with some more news right after the break.
The Regional Review brings you news, views, and interviews from NMH correspondents from across the country. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact regional@synergy.com.na.
Heading into our top stories, prominent Haitian journalist survives assassination attempt. A well-known Haitian journalist survived an assassination attempt in which he was shot in his car while on his work to the capital, Port-au-Prince on Tuesday, officials said. Robertson Alphonse, who works at the daily newspaper Le Nouvelliste and radio station Magic 9, has undergone 2 operations so far and is hospitalized and expected to recover, according to France Duval, chief editor for both media. Haiti's Ministry of Culture and Communication said it learned with horror the news of the assassination attempt that occurred in the Delmas neighborhood. Many colleagues echoed the sentiment, including Wildo Meroncourt of the online news site Aibo Post. Duval thanked an unidentified person he said rescued Alphonse and applied a tourniquet to stop the bleeding before medical help arrived. He noted the car had more than 10 bullet holes.
In our next story, President Chekwera fires Agriculture Minister Lowe and his deputy. Malawi's President Lazarus Chekwera has fired his Agriculture Minister Loben Lowe and his deputy Madalitso Kambowa Wirima following a serious fertilizer procurement scandal which saw Malawi government being duped out of $725,000. Speaking in his national address on Tuesday, Chekwera said he has relieved Lowe and Wirima for their high incompetence and gross negligence over management of this year's Affordable Inputs Program. By powers vested in me, I have relieved Minister of Agriculture and his deputy with immediate effect. There are serious problems in the agriculture sector which need to be fixed. I am not here to serve a party, alliance, or a minister, but I'm here to serve Malawians, said the president in his part of the address. Chekwera has since appointed Sem Kawale as new Minister of Agriculture, and he has hinted that in the due course he will make various changes in his cabinet. The president has also confirmed that his government paid $725,000 through 2 different banks to pay a British company which was supposed to supply this country with fertilizer. However, he said the government is trying hard to recover the money through the banks, which they are dealing with in the procurement process.
Now, Ghana's ruling party lawmakers demand dismissal of Finance Minister. Ghana's ruling party lawmakers on Tuesday called for the sacking of the country's Finance Minister, adding pressure on the government to deal with record inflation. President Nana Akufo-Addo has come under fire as Ghanaians face 37% inflation and the collapse of their currency, the cedi in an economic hardship worsened by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has just returned from Washington, where he was in talks with the International Monetary Fund to secure a loan of $3 billion. In addition to Mr. Ofori-Atta, a majority of parliamentarians from Mr. Akufo-Addo's New Patriotic Party have called for the dismissal of another finance official. In Ghana's parliament, the NPP and the National Democratic Congress have the same number of seats. Lawmakers are scheduled to begin debating the 2023 budget in November. On social media, the call by the majority caucus in parliament has been leading the trends, with minority MPs also calling for the same motion.
Apple calls on global supply chain to decarbonize by 2030. Tech giant Apple has called on its global supply chain to take new steps to address their greenhouse gas emissions and take a comprehensive approach to decarbonization. Apple said it will evaluate the work of its major manufacturing partners to decarbonize their Apple-related operations, including running on 100% renewable electricity, and will track yearly progress. The company has been carbon neutral for its global corporate operations since 2020 and is laser focused on its ambitious goal to become carbon neutral across its entire global supply chain and the life cycle of every Apple product. Now, Apple CEO Tim Cook said fighting climate change remains one of Apple's most urgent priorities. As the impacts of climate change are increasingly felt around the world, Apple also announced new initiatives and investments aimed at helping decarbonize the global economy and promote innovative climate solutions for communities. This includes significant investments in renewable energy in Europe, partnerships to support businesses transitioning to clean energy, and new support for projects that advance natural carbon removal and community-driven climate solutions around the world. Apple said more than 200 suppliers representing more than 70% of the company's direct manufacturing spend have already committed to using clean power such as wind or solar for all Apple product production.
Now in our next story, South Africa is Africa's most food-secure country. Amid the frustration with electricity rationing, higher inflation and a global economic slowdown, South Africans can find some cheer in the remarkable performance of the country's agriculture sector. Global Food Security Index, compiled by The Economist and sponsored by Gotv, represents the global benchmark for international comparisons. The 2022 index shows that South Africa has recorded a record leap, namely from 70th position in 2021 to 59th. South Africa is now the most food secure country on the African continent, with Tunisia in second place at 62nd. Only 113 countries possess agriculture sectors that are worthy of inclusion in the index. South Africa's improvement is especially evident in 3 of 4 sub-indices, namely food availability, food quality and safety, and sustainability and adaptation. Now, despite the existence of daunting challenges facing the agriculture sector, most notably unpredictable weather, crime, poor infrastructure, and high levels of global protectionism, it is abundantly clear that South Africa farmers are in a class of their own. Apart from providing ample food to 60 million citizens and several million other residents, the country's farmers also help to feed people in dozens of other countries, especially in Southern Africa.
Wrapping up our top stories, former Niger leader slams international community for neglecting Sahel insurgency. The former president of Niger, Muhammadu Issoufou, has warned of dire consequences that befell the Sahel, a region plagued by acute insurgency. Issoufou further said that the war in the Sahel has been neglected by the world and instead more attention given to Ukraine, terming it a double standard. It shocks Africans to see billions of dollars raining down on Ukraine, while eyes are diverted from the situation in the Sahel. When we set up to illustrate what I just said, the G5 Sahel and its joint force, to make the G5 Sahel joint force operational, we needed $400 million, but we never got it. The massive support that is given to Ukraine, one has the feeling of having double standards, said Muhammadu Issoufou, the ex-president of Niger. The former leader was speaking during the just concluded Dakar 8th edition of the Dakar International Forum. The former leader further said he held the international community responsible for the situation in the Sahel following their military intervention in Libya. The war's impact has been felt strongly in Africa, where food prices soared as imports, notably of cereals and fertilizer, were restricted. France and the West in general are often the butts of accusations of neocolonialism in Africa, that they try to impose policies on local governments or promote their own economic interests. In the Central African Republic and Mali, Russia has built up close ties that have translated into Russian military support and waning French clout.
That brings us to the end of our top stories on Africa. Good morning, but stay with us because after the break, we look at WHO discussing how to eradicate the polio virus. Stay with us.
Sport Wrap is a daily show focusing on all sport news and current affairs. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact sportrap@synergy.com.ma.
In our next video, we explore what does it mean when polio virus is detected in the sewage of a city. Dr. Zubair Wadood explains what it will take to eradicate polio from the planet in Science Inspired.
Poliovirus has been detected in New York and London. What does that mean? And what will it take to eradicate polio from the planet? Hello and welcome to Science in 5. I'm Vismita Gupta Smith. We are talking today to Dr. Zubair Wadood. Welcome, Zubair. Zubair, let's start with what does it mean to detect poliovirus in New York and London?
Thank you, Vismita. So poliovirus has been detected in New York and London, in these high-income countries. In London, the detection is only in the sewage system, while in New York, it's in the sewage system as well as, unfortunately, also led to a paralytic polio case. What it means is that poliovirus is transmitting in these communities, and it's commendable to note that public health authorities in these places are taking appropriate strong actions to stop the transmission of poliovirus and strengthen surveillance, especially focusing on the high-risk population subgroups. Now, taking a step back and looking at these events in perspective of the global polio eradication efforts. Indeed, from a scientific perspective, these kind of events do not represent a make or break for the global polio eradication effort. The global polio eradication effort and its success would actually bank a lot on the progress in the two remaining endemic polio reservoirs in the world, that is Pakistan and Afghanistan. Events like London and New York represent a glimpse or just a reminder for us that polio can resurface anywhere in the world until and unless it is eradicated from the entire globe. And Pakistan and Afghanistan remain the highest priority when it comes to polio eradication global effort.
Zubair, most of the world has eradicated polio. Why does it keep appearing in different countries?
When it comes to Pakistan and Afghanistan, it's very encouraging to see that there is a lot of progress over the last 2 years. In Pakistan, although the new polio cases are on the increase in 2022. However, these polio cases are being reported from a small geographical area in one of the provinces in the country. In Afghanistan as well, more than 3 million children who were previously not consistently reached with polio vaccine are now being offered polio vaccine quite regularly over the last year or so, which is a great progress. Having said that, poliovirus is still managing to transmit and circulate in some parts of Pakistan and Afghanistan, and until and unless this transmission is stopped, polio will continue to surface here and there. And we have seen in late 2021 and in 2022 poliovirus importation into Southeast Africa, and now we are seeing poliovirus transmission detected in places like New York and London. It all reiterates that the last strongholds of poliovirus in Pakistan and Afghanistan need to be addressed, and poliovirus transmission needs to be stopped there. Until and unless we achieve that, the poliovirus will continue to appear in different parts of the world, given the ongoing population movement.
Zubair, speak to us about what it will take to eradicate polio from the planet.
To achieve success now for polio eradication is a matter of political and societal will. We know what it takes to eradicate polio. We have the strategies. The biological and technical feasibility of polio eradication has been completely established. But it's a matter of appropriately and strongly implementing those strategies. Now, it's very heartening to see that political fora like G7, G8, Commonwealth countries as well as World Health Assembly fully recognize the current opportunity, but this window of opportunity is not going to be open forever, and it needs to be taken and utilized very efficiently, smartly, and quickly. Rotary International and Rotarians across the world are engaging with the governments of the polio-affected countries and donor countries. Societies are being mobilized. There is a pledging moment coming up next month in October, very generously co-hosted by the government of Germany. What the success means is no child ever paralyzed by poliovirus anywhere in the world, while the failure would mean tens of thousands of polio cases over the coming years, with a lot of economic impacts as well. If we fail, we cannot point towards medical and technical issues. It will be only because of the lack of political and societal will. So let us put our hands together and give this last push to eradicate polio from the planet and give our generations to come a healthy future free of polio.
Thank you, Zubair. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
You are still with Africa Good Morning. Now, if you're hoping for an Africa Good Day, you might want to start by checking out the weather predictions up next. Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. Heading into the economic news stories, Africa battles to capitalize on mineral resources. Mechanical diggers are hard at work in the bleak landscape of the Moanda open cast mine in Gabon, using giant jaws to rip out manganese and then dump the ore into trucks. We're lucky here in Moanda. We find it 5 to 6 meters below the surface, said manager Olivier Kasibi, whose mine yields 36 tons of manganese each day. Now, element number 25 on the periodic table, manganese has traditionally been perceived as a useful, if humdrum, material widely employed in steel and alloys. More recently, though, the silvery material has gained star status. Decarbonization of the world economy will take center stage at the UN's COP27 climate talks in Egypt next month. And as the great transition goes into a higher gear, eyes are turning to Africa. Its soil is rich manganese, cobalt, nickel, and lithium, crucial ingredients in cleaner technology for generating or storing power.
Ivory Coast starts construction on first biomass power plant. Now, Ivory Coast has started construction on its first biomass-fired power generation plant, a 46-megawatt project backed by France EDF, the company building it said on Monday. The plant will cost over 200 million euros and is expected to be operational in 3 years. Raphael Raoult, managing director of BioVia Energy, told Reuters. BioVia is owned by EDF, Ivory Coast Agro-Industrial Group, SIFCA, and French firm Meridiam. The project is being financed by Proparco and the Emerging Africa Infrastructure Fund. The plant includes two 23 megawatts turbines that will run on around 520,000 tons of palm oil waste bought from farmers in Ayebo, about 100 kilometers east of Abidjan. The partners have said that the project could boost the revenues of nearly 12,000 farmers by around 20% annually. It's a project that responds to the needs of Ivory Coast, which is facing a growing demand in terms of energy, said Raoult. Ivory Coast power capacity is about 2,369 megawatts, mainly from oil and gas, and the country hopes to increase that to 4,000 megawatts by 2025.
That brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Up next, economic indicators. You're still with Africa. Good morning. Let's head straight into the sports package with Ari.
Good day, everyone. Time for international sports news, and starting off with the T20 World Cup cricket that's currently taking place in Australia. And there's a big result for Ireland in the tournament, and that's news just coming in. It is Ireland that beat England by 5 runs. That was according to the Duckworth-Lewis system. Rain also interrupted that game, and what happened in that game was that Ireland batted first. They made 157 in their 20 allotted overs, and it was Balbirnie that scored 64 or 62 from 46 deliveries. Then England were 105 for the loss of 5 wickets. That was in the 15th over when the rain came down. That was in Melbourne. They didn't go back to play again, and according to the Duckworth-Lewis method, they were 5 runs short. So England that loses to Ireland, Ireland winning that game by 5 wickets. It's very significant in that group because it's a very strong group with also Australia, New Zealand and Sri Lanka in Group 1. And earlier, or the day before, it was Australia that had an important win beating Sri Lanka, and they beat them by 7 wickets. That was after they lost the first game to New Zealand. Thursday's games will see South Africa play against Bangladesh and Zimbabwe against Pakistan, both teams urgently needing a victory after their game also rained out with no result. That was earlier in the week. Going on to some tennis news. 2 tournaments being played at the moment on the ATP Men's Tour. The first one is the Erste Bank Tournament Open. That's also called the Vienna Open. And the results from that tournament is that Cameron Norrie, he beat the Pedro Corsini of Argentina in the first round for 6-3, 2-6 and 7-6. And then a big result for Dominic Thiem. He's coming back from a long injury for a long time, and he beat Tyler Paul of the USA in 3 sets, tough sets, 2 tiebreaks in the last 2 sets to go through for Dominic Thiem. And also, it was Hubert Huberts, the number 5 seed from Poland. He beat Francis Tiafoe in 3 sets as well. Top seeds also still in the tournament is Andrei Rublev and Stefanos Tsitsipas. Also being played is the Swiss Indoor Tournament, and there the number 2 seed Casper Ruud is out of the tournament. Casper Ruud lost to Stan Wawrinka, a very experienced player of Switzerland, and he lost by 6-4 and 6-4. And also Andy Murray is through to the next round, and the number 1 seed in this tournament is Carlos Alcaraz, currently the world number 1 from Spain. Continuing international sports.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Let's have a look at the highlights from this morning's broadcast. Prominent Haitian journalist survives assassination attempt. President Chakwera fires Agriculture Minister Lowe and his deputy. Africa battles to capitalize on mineral resources. Those have been our stories. And
with that, we have come to the end of our show. Do remember that Africa Good Morning is repeated on our 1up2 website, in our DSTV channel 285, and our Gotv channel 94 between 8:30 and 9 a.m. I am Glenn Rashipura.
And I am Ashwin Berry, Sweraja Kanaka.